Kaylee Cuoco and Sam Claflin star in the MGM Plus original series, Vanished. When the man Alice loves disappears on a train to the south of France, every romantic memory becomes evidence. Every intimate detail, a potential threat. She thought she knew everything about him, but she may not even know his real name. 4-part thriller Vanished premieres February 1st on MGM Plus. Finding the truth is a dangerous affair.
I'm Aislinn Green, and this is Unpacked Minis The Cruise Edition. I'm standing in a huge room looking out at what feels like an ocean of food. And it kind of is, because this is F&B at Sea.
So F&B at Sea is really I'd call it almost a marketplace for cruise line executives who are typically procuring food and beverage, and the suppliers who are supplying them or wish to supply them. So what we have here this year, I'd say the majority of suppliers have never done business with a cruise line before. And so it's a great clearinghouse for ideas and some great tastes for everyone.
That's David Yeskel, a travel and food journalist who has specialized in the cruise industry for the last 20 years. Sea Trade is an annual cruise conference that takes place in Miami each year. And F&B at Sea is where you go to try all the foods that might wind up on your next cruise ship. I caught up with David right after he moderated a panel on the ways that onboard wellness programs have changed over the years. We found a couch in a crowded cocktail lounge, so warning, it's a little noisy behind us. And we talked about the foods and the culinary trends making a splash in the cruise world. David, welcome to this special Sea Trade episode of Unpacked. You spoke on a panel today about the way that health and wellness has become a bigger part of the cruise experience. Could you tell me a little bit more about what that looks like and how that has changed from years past?
Yeah, so I can tell you that as little as a few years ago, you wouldn't have necessarily found the terms wellness-focused and cruise F&B in the same sentence, because the experience up till then was really about the splurge. It was about excess. It was about lots of rich, heavy foods washed down with copious amounts of alcohol. And not that there's anything wrong with that model, of course, but as guests are living healthier lives ashore, they want to carry that ethos on board with them, at least partially, so they can feel a little better about their cruise vacation. So it isn't all about the excess. There's still an urge to splurge, certainly, but they want to temper that more and more and do at least part of what they're doing at home. And the cruise lines are accommodating that, of course, because the demand is pulling that supply along. And these dishes now, plant-based, vegan dishes, are so much better than they were even just a few years ago.
And I imagine that extends into the beverage space, especially as people are maybe more sober curious or do the dry January. How have you seen that evolve?
So what I'm noticing on some lines, like on Virgin Voyages, for instance, which everybody thinks of as a constant party, and it kind of is, I'm noticing that the guests may opt for low alcohol drinks during the day, kind of do a slow burn at the afternoon at the pool, and then move into full alcohol drinks at night. Some are obviously enjoying no alcohol, and there's this rise of no alcohol mocktails that are much more interesting than they used to be. You know, it was a Shirley Temple at one point, right? That was it. Now there are these essentially they're creative cocktails using botanical ingredients, all kinds of interesting ingredients, as well as non-alcoholic spirits. So this is really made mocktails taste like cocktails. So there's a brand called Liars. They're being in that space. They have a non-alcoholic gin, a non-alcoholic vodka, a non-alcoholic whiskey. The idea is they have a little bit of the bite of the alcohol, so it really tastes like you're drinking alcohol. And when they're mixed with a good mixer, you wouldn't know that it's a non-alcoholic drink.
That is, I think, that big differentiator. Like the alcohol-free spirits that I've tried haven't had that kind of, that burn, that bite you're describing. It's like, it's still not really the same thing.
Concurrently, we have the rise of teas, specialty teas, and smoothies. So for the first few years, I was noticing smoothies introduced on cruise ships. They weren't healthy, so much sugar in them, and now the lines have kind of got with the program. So very little sweetener added, maybe just plain yogurt and berries. Then the berries provide a little bit of sweetness, maybe some protein powder thrown in. So the smoothies are healthier than they were. The juices, obviously fresh pressed juices, not sugary, or sugar added juices. Teas, a whole revolution in teas. I was on an MSC ship, the MSC World Europa, and there was one beverage outlet dedicated to just tea. They had a full tea menu, all kinds of interesting teas from India, from all around the world. It was a tea house, essentially, that took the place of what was previously a bar on this ship.
That's a shocker, I have to admit. Well, are there cruise lines that you would name specifically for, a wider range of offering for like vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free that you think are really doing that well?
I can tell you all the cruise lines are doing something unique in that space. And in all levels of the cruise industry. So starting in the contemporary, in the mass market level, Carnival Cruise Line has this great vegan menu they've introduced in their main dining rooms. Every night, it's a completely different menu, 4 or 5 appetizers, 4 or 5 mains, and a few desserts. All vegan, a lot of plant-based, and I've tried a lot of these items, these dishes, and they're good. People would normally expect to think of a Carnival as it's a party-hardy mass market cruise line, that there'd be a call for or a demand for vegan and plant-based dishes, but there is. And so not only was I surprised that Carnival offered this, but I was pleasantly surprised with the quality of these items. I tasted most of them. They were very good. And I saw that there was demand for them. So on that level of the industry, certainly, all through in the premium level, Holland America line, Celebrity, and Princess are all doing a good job on plant-based and vegan. The next level up, which is called upper premium, a lot of consumers aren't familiar with that term, but those are lines like Oceania, Viking, and Azamara. I notice on their casual, even their buffets, there's a plant-based section now, and plant-based foods there. And of course, at the top end of the industry, the luxury players. And I was just on Explora Journeys. This is MSC's luxury brand. They do a great job. Every menu has vegan, plant-based options. The buffet has vegan and plant-based options at every station. So more and more, I'm seeing this in every niche in the industry. There's a growing supply of these offerings. And I can tell you, they're much better than they were even 3 or 4 years ago. The plant-based and vegan dishes are better in terms of taste, quality, texture than they ever were. And something I was just talking about on this panel I just hosted were even gluten-free baked goods. So I can tell you up till about 5 years ago, gluten-free baked goods had the consistency of dry sand, but didn't taste as good as dry sand. And now that there's a variety of new flours they're using with almond flours, even those gluten-free baked goods are much better. So not only is there a larger variety of items, but they're better in terms of taste, texture, and quality than they ever were.
Well, in terms of some of the other trends that we're seeing in kind of cruise F&B, one of the things that I've been hearing a lot about is local sourcing and really emphasizing that. Is that something that you've seen evolve?
So a lot of the lines are trying to do as much local sourcing as possible. It's relatively problematic because they can't take on provisions in every port. So before a cruise line does business with a supplier, they have to be vetted. They have to make sure they can deliver the same quality product every time they procure. That's not always possible in some small ports. So while they do a good job of sourcing occasionally from local ports, they need to depend on their purveyors in their turnaround port where the ship turns around and embarks passengers. But in a lot of cases, those purveyors that they're trusted and vetted by the cruise line are able to source product from some of these smaller purveyors, so small fishmongers, relatively in their region even. So while the cruise line can't take product directly from some of these small purveyors, their principal partners in their turnaround ports can, and they do the vetting and make sure that the product is the same quality. What a lot of cruise lines are doing now, typically on the upper end of the industry in the luxury sector, shopping with the chef. So typically there's a smaller ships that don't need as much product, and they're looking for specialty items. So the guests will sign up for a shore excursion, essentially, small group that goes out with the chef early morning in a port. I did it in Bergen, Norway, with Seabourn Cruises. We went out with the chef. He went to his fish market sources that he knows and trusts. We went around. He was tasting. He gave us all a taste. And he had crew members with him with an ice chest. They were pulling an ice chest in a wagon. And he would buy a few pounds of different types of fish to bring back to the ship to prepare later. That was really an example of how focused and locally focused they can do things.
Love it. The combination of excursion and dining. Well, are there other trends that you've seen in this space that you think are going to hit the cruise lines?
I think most food and beverage trends are still starting landside, shoreside restaurants in bigger cities, of course, but they're taken up pretty quickly on board cruises because sophisticated guests, especially for upper premium and luxury guests, they're demanding. And they want to see the products they're used to and the foods they're used to. So we're seeing more sophisticated ethnic cuisines. We're seeing some high-end Chinese restaurants, high-end Japanese restaurants, Mediterranean, sometimes Spanish tapas served aboard. So yeah, we're seeing trends from ashore migrate, as well as more ethnic choices that before weren't really maybe desired by as large a demographic, and now they are. So the cruise lines are bringing that on board.
Well, I was curious to know, how often do restaurants rotate? And is that something that it's harder to change on a cruise ship than it might be out in a city?
It is harder to change on cruise ships, especially the lines that have a lot of ships. So, for instance, Carnival's now the largest line in the world in terms of number of ships. They have 29. So they can introduce something new on one ship and try it out. And they do that. See if it works. But then rolling it out is a big task. So the smaller lines can be a little more agile. So I was just on this panel here at F&B at Sea where we had Celestial, they have 2 ships, Cunard Line, 4 ships, and Virgin Voyages, 3 ships that are soon to have a 4th. These lines are smaller, so they're able to turn on a dime a little more and try something new. So Virgin Voyages just announced that in their Razzle Dazzle restaurant, which, by the way, is a plant-based, veggie-forward restaurant, they're instituting a Chinese menu at night during dinner. So it'll be plant-forward during the day. At night, it'll be Chinese. And they're going to try that out. If it works, they might expand that to their other ship. The larger cruise lines have a difficult time doing that because once they make a commitment to that, it's rolling it out across their fleet. It's a big investment. They've got to make sure it's going to have traction, because it's tough to undo something like that they've done, and it's expensive.
Is there any other culinary news that's come out of Sea Trade or F&B at Sea that you've been excited about?
I'm seeing a lot of innovation in bites and in like gourmet bites that the cruise lines may want to offer, as well as some new drink options. There's so many new vendors and suppliers who are vying to be picked up by the cruise lines. So interesting alcohol products. There's some great flavored tequilas with cream and chocolate. There's a duck purveyor from the Pacific Northwest that is pushing this duck bacon wrapped around a date for a little kind of guilty pleasure bite that's great.
Well, that duck bite sounds fantastic. Shall we go taste some more things?
Let's go try one of these. It's great.
I spend the rest of my afternoon tasting my way around F&B at Sea. My favorite bites include this Italian flatbread with prosciutto and arugula and a chocolate frozen yogurt made with pea protein. I know it sounds a little out there, but it was so delicious. You'll find links to David's website and his social handles in the show notes, as well as links to Afar's recommendations for the best cruise lines for food. Check back next week for our final round of Sea Trade coverage featuring the top cruise trends to watch for this year and where to cruise next. This has been Unpacked Minis, a podcast from Afar. The podcast is produced by Aislinn Green and Nikki Galtaland. Music composition by Chris Collin. And remember, the travel world is complicated. We're here to help you unpack it. Mini Bite by Mini Bite.